Torah portion, parasha Vayechi. What does it mean, class?
He lived.
Who lived?
Jesus lived.
Right. How come they didn't say Jesus? How come they didn't?
He lived or he lived?
He lives. Well, is it lives or live?
Lived.
And he lived.
And he lived. ED, past tense. But, and two significant passings happened. How come they didn't say, and he died?
Because they don't want you to reflect on the death.
No.
Because Israel's prophetic connections?
No, but we'll get there. But technically, he breathed out.
Who, Jacob?
Did y'all
Yeah.
notice that in the portion?
Yeah,
I did a little
yeah.
extra study, and they did say that they don't believe he died.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this portion is Vayechi, and it's talking about he lived, just like who else lived? What other portion in Genesis did we talk about? And fill in the blank lived.
Continue to live.
Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, see how it says it, and she lived, and he lived. Anyway,
Okay.
this portion covers Genesis chapter 47,
Right.
verse 28, to chapter 50, verse 26. Is that correct?
Right.
That's the last verse. So this one we finish
There
the
is
book
she.
of Genesis in this section, right?
Yeah.
And every time that we finish a book, you're supposed to bless the reading of the book. We didn't know that, did we?
I
Right.
did, because
Learning
I
something
finished
new?
the book of Jasher today.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna do a little blessing after we finish our Torah portion. But that's what we're gonna talk about, and it's talking about many things. We saw transition. We saw blessings. We saw restoration of a family, and we saw prophecy, or what I was alluding to in the first take, the Spirit. The most important thing about this one, to me, the running theme was about how important it is to draw to the spiritual side of things. Okay? So, when I mentioned that he lived, the Midrash believe, and that's the Jewish teachings that they have,
Right.
documenting their culture and their history and filling in the gaps.
Right.
It talks about the way he passed on. The specific verbiage in Hebrew does not denote death, which is why they're wanting people to pay attention to that. And we're going to get into our portion now. Ready, guys?
Ready.
Ready.
Okay. We're starting at chapter 47, verse 28. We're going to be closing out some things. This book is kind of prophesying, this portion is kind of prophesying to the fact that we're going to be ending things and moving on. Okay, 47:28. It says, and Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, so the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew near that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph and said to him, if now I have found grace in your sight, put, I pray you, your hand under my thigh. So let's back up a little bit. Because we know that we're just moving out of those 7 years of bad famine and 7 years of really bad famine, where Joseph was responsible for feeding the entire nation. So his people were living in Goshen. His dad, he had them settle in Goshen, and but it was in the land of Egypt. So Joseph is coming to his father, and in the Hebrew culture, when they make an oath between people, they'll put their hand under each other's thigh because it's close to the seed, right? So it's like the way they swear to make sure that you fulfill something. And we saw that where else?
With Abraham.
Exactly. Who was the person who he made the promise to?
Eleazar.
Right. What did you say, Bishop?
Chief said it.
It's coming up with all sorts of things tonight. The Melchizedek, is that what you're saying? No, it was when Eleazar had to go and get Isaac's bride. He made him swear with the same posture that they took to to agree to fulfill this oath on their behalf. So that's just one of those cultural things specific to these people. So I'm just spiritual. So this, how I always see something in here, but it was really talking about the spirit. Now, another thing I would like to focus on is blessing. I want us to think about the word blessing, because this portion is blessing the children of Israel.
Right.
And then who else also blessed the children of Israel, as we're going to see later? Moses, right? You remember Moses also, he had to fix a few things, because, Reuben was cast aside, his children were being dwindled, right, because of the act. So Moses had to go and kind of give them a blessing so that the children that were alive from all the incidents that are going to occur in their time with Moses, they'll continue to have their seed increase. But anyway, that's another time where they were blessed. And they were also blessed at birth. Remember? Their mothers blessed them when they were naming them, even though they were attaching different feelings and emotions to it, as we discussed. They were also blessing their children. But you're supposed to bless your children on the way out. Why? Question to the audience.
Because we're blessed when we go in and blessed when we go out.
So, yeah, that's a great comment. But what else? Why else do we bless our children? What is so significant about a name and this incident that we're about to focus on, where he's about to take his last breath and he's about to speak into these people's lives? And these prophecies that we're going to see are going to be played out even to this day. So how important is it to bless? So what is the significance? When I said that, what's the significance of a blessing?
It's to tell them their future.
Defines them.
Exactly. All of you are correct. It defines you, right? You have a promise to hold on to. And then what was the other thing? It gives you a future and a hope. Okay. So we're going to see the significance of the blessing. Defines you, gives you hope and a future. And then what was the other thing? Gives you hope, it gives you future, defines you. I think that's all three of them. Right? That's all the three we mentioned? Promises. Thank you. Promise. It gives you a fulfillment of the promise. Now, it's very important that we're about to go into this. Okay, so now we kind of move down to the fact that Joseph and his father Israel are in conference. And he's asking him for this oath. And he says, if now I have found grace in your sight, I'm at chapter 48, verse 29, in the middle of that scripture. Put, I pray you, your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray you, in Egypt. But I will lie with my fathers, and you shall carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as you have said. This is Joseph saying back to his father. And he said, swear to me. And he swore to him, and Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. So they have made that agreement. And then time passed, right? And time passed, and he was aging more and more, right? We already know Jacob was a little older than normal. So now we're at chapter 48, verse 1, and it says, and it came to pass. See, that's how we know time passed. After these things that one told Joseph, behold, your father is sick. And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And one told Jacob and said, behold, your son Joseph comes to you. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. Now, what have we noticed about in this passage? Did anyone notice anything?
They keep swapping names.
they keep swapping names.
Yeah, from Jacob to Israel.
So he's like, bury me in this land that was promised to me. That was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? That's faith, knowing that they're going to possess that land. And then they're moving on, and we're seeing Joseph and Jacob. Well, Joseph being told about Jacob's impending passing. And they keep talking about how Israel strengthened himself versus Jacob just sat up in the bed. Because they're about to start prophesying, and they're about to give us what?
The future.
Hope. They're going to give us hope. You get strength about you, because it didn't say Jacob, it said Israel, which is the nation of Israel. This is hope for us. Okay, guys?
Right.
All right, now we're at chapter 48, verse 3. And Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz. So now he's just talking to his dad.
Right.
In the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful, multiply you, and I will make of you a multitude of people, and will give this land to your seed after you for an everlasting possession. So seed in my book is underlined. It's talking about his descendants that are going to span across time. And now, your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you into Egypt, are mine, as Reuben and Simeon. They shall be mine. And your issue, or your offspring, which you father after them, shall be yours, and shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance. And as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died by me in the land of Canaan, in the way, when yet there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And I buried her there in the way of Ephrath. The same is Bethlehem. And Israel beheld Joseph's sons and said, who are these? Now, what's happening, guys?
The blessing is beginning.
The blessing is beginning.
He's meeting his grandkids.
He's meeting his grandkids. What else?
It's almost like he sort of adopted him as his own son.
Exactly. He's about to birth them on his knees, right? Just like who? Rachel and Leah, right? Okay. They're going to be entitled to the full blessing of their grandfather. So, they didn't take the place of Reuben and Simeon. They just increased in that blessing. Okay, so some people think they replaced them. Did anyone ever think that? I did. I was like, Reuben messed up. Simeon messed up. Now we got Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay, so now he's meeting his grandchildren and he's meeting his children. Because he told Jacob specifically, whatever you have after I'm gone, that's yours, but this is mine. Just like Laban said, right? You remember when Jacob was leaving Laban's household, and we were like so up in arms about, why is this man claiming these children as his own? Like, you've stolen my children and my daughters. And Jacob fathered and married all those people because of the patriarchal society. So this is a significant event that we're seeing, because they're going to be able to take on that full blessing. Okay, the father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it's a really big deal when you think about how you connect to the children of Israel and the blessing of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right? All right. Because Ephraim is going to be prophesied to be a what?
Mixed multitude.
A bull. I'm not reviving everybody. We're on the same plane. Anyway, he's going to be the one that the 10 tribes, the northern tribes, and all these disperses, Ephraim that goes out, leads the way, travels the world during these diasporas, during the Holocaust, during all these major life events, mixing and mingling with these people and traveling down to Europe, all the way to America, where we are, right? Okay. So anyway, we're back to chapter 48, verse 10. And we're just going to read this like we always do. Slowly try to break it apart and look at different things that we may have maybe not noticed in our past. So it says, where were we? And Israel beheld Jacob. Okay, and he's like, who are these? I'm at verse 9 of chapter 48. They are, and Joseph said to his father, they are my sons whom God has given me in this place. And he said, bring them, I pray you to me, and I will bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see. And he brought them near to him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Who else's eyes were dim?
Israel.
Isaac. So we're finishing a book, right? So Shane's like trivia. So I think that's why I keep asking you questions. All right. Isaac's eyes were also dim. Isaac's eyes were spiritually dim. Israel's eyes were dim from age. All right. So he kissed them and embraced them, and Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, and lo, God has shown me also your seed. Now, what can we take away from this incident?
That he knew that Jacob was alive. Joseph was alive.
Or that God keeps promises. So when you're asking God to save your family and your children, he'll do it.
Right. Amen.
All right. Now, and he was like, not only do I see you alive, but I see your seed. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, right? And that's the posture you would take because she's not giving birth. When Bilhah and Zilpah were giving birth, they became Rachel and Leah's children, and that's the culture is because they actually get on their knees and catch the baby, and that's their baby. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're talking about, and that's what they're referencing. And he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And what is this posture showing us? Humility and submission, which is so like Joseph to be able to do that. It's the sign of a great leader, which we talked about in our half Torah, didn't we? We did. I have it on the recording. All right. So Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near to him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hand purposefully or intentionally, for Manasseh was the firstborn. Now, I was thinking about this because you guys know, we'll step away from the book for a second. We were talking about how the firstborn never gets, for some reason in this history, never gets the firstborn blessing, right? Mm-hmm. But who did? Yes! Speak up with confidence. Yeshua! Yeah, I was thinking about that. Jesus is one of the only people, well, there may be more in here, but Jesus is one of the only ones in our culture where we actually see the firstborn son walks out and receives that full blessing. Now, that's amazing, isn't that?
It is.
I don't need an applause, but I just thought, no. I just thought that was cool. I was thinking about that the other day. Okay, so he's like, well, you mixed up the blessings, Dad. And he blessed Joseph and said, God before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, did walk, the God which fed me all my life long to this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lad. So he's actually praying over his children.
Right.
And let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth.
Right.
And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put your right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, in you shall Israel bless, saying, God make you as Ephraim and Manasseh. And he said, Ephraim before Manasseh. Now this is a blessing that we speak over our children, or that we're supposed to speak over our children. May they be like Ephraim and Manasseh. May they be like Rachel and Leah, if you're girls. Right? You're supposed to speak that blessing. When we finish this book, when we finish the 5th book, there's something that God says, what Moses tells us to do. Before we step into Joshua, and before we step in the New Testament, what is it? Remember these words that I speak. So why, this is our question as Messianics, or people that believe in Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit, but look at them as one. Why don't people embrace the beginning of the book when that was the instruction? I mean, if you have this contention with people and you're like, I practice the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. And they say, wow, that's old. I don't need that. But what did God say? He says you do need that, right? In Exodus, not trying to get verbatim here. What did you say, Elder?
There was a promise throughout your generation.
It was a fulfillment, an obligation, you know. And one of the things we'll look at Manasseh, whose name means to forget, but who was able to be fruitful. He was someone that clung to God's words, right? That's what his name means. We'll see that in just a moment. But that's what his name means. Joseph blessed him, saying that while I was in trouble, this beautiful life helped me forget all the bad.
Right.
And that's one of the things about being in a strange culture, which we had no control over, if you think about it, you know, 100 years later, 400 years back. We were kind of at the whim of madmen here. But we were supposed to be taught these things, you know, which is why it's coming at us in a flood. And you're like, I don't understand why I'm even in the Torah, what the Torah is, and why does it apply to me? It's because you have to catch up. We have to catch up because the whole point is for us all to come into oneness.
Right.
And Joseph was supposed to take those 2 sticks, right, and bring them together.
Yeah.
Can't do that if no one knows what's going on.
Right.
All right, anyway, you know, they'll come into it. They have to.
Right.
The zeal of the Lord shall perform this. Right? Okay, so back to it. We're at the point where he's blessing his sons, and he's specifically saying something that the Hebrew people speak over their children, which we should also adopt, speaking the blessings over Ephraim and Manasseh over our sons, but we need to tell them who Ephraim and Manasseh are.
Right.
Right.
So they can get the blessing. Like, I can't really connect to who this person is if I don't know who they are. And that's what we're talking about, spiritually connecting, right, to the Lord. We have a question in the audience.
Just a comment.
Or a comment.
My coworker has was raised in the Catholic faith, and when the grandmother comes and brings them gifts that she gets for paying offerings and stuff, she gave the kids a rosary, and you know how Jesus is depicted on the rosary. When she handed it to the kid is like, who is this? Because they're not passing it on. They don't know who they are in their faith. I think it relates to Ephraim and Manasseh. If you don't even read your word, you don't know who you're connected to.
It definitely relates. Also, pagan.
Well, I know.
No, I'm just kidding. Because they're like all over the map, but guess what? So are we. Because we put Jesus on a cross, and now we look at our cross, and we're like, oh, Jesus saved me. But that is an image. And he says, do what? Make no image. So we all got a lot of things that we can take our hard heads and beat it against the thing. Well, the Bible. Beat ourselves straight. Yes, Minister Dorothea? You had a question or a comment?
Well, as you well know, a lot of this is
New
to
to
me.
you.
My question is, why did the Israelites just choose those 5 books? Why not the rest of the Old Testament?
That I think that's more of that's what they had at the time. It's just kind of these were the books that were written first, and as time passed, they just were chronicling their lives.
But I
So
mean,
it's just
as
what they
far as
start.
saying
Oh,
this is the
as the
Torah.
foundation,
Yeah.
that's the first thing they had. That's what they passed down orally. So when we get into Exodus, and you can answer the question, Apostle, but when we get into Exodus, this is all going to make sense about them verbally passing on these laws and these teaching and instructions, and it all was found in the first 5 books. So they just use that to continue to pass that on orally. Were you going to say something, Apostle?
I was gonna say when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, there was nothing written. There was nothing written down. And so Moses was given the job of writing down the instructions that God was giving. So Moses is credited with authoring the first 5 books. And so that's just their tradition is that the laws that God set down were put in those books. That doesn't take away from the rest of the books. It's just that that's how those books were established. They were written, they were credited with Moses writing the books. And that's why that is. Okay? Does that make sense?
I got it.
It's better than my answer, which was it'll make sense later.
It makes
So
sense.
it makes,
What are you saying?
it makes sense. I was just thinking too in terms of part of the statement that was made about when the kids don't know who Jesus is. You know, like on the cross that you were talking about, or what have you. But it stems from the fact that, say, during the times that pass over from year to year, when Passover comes around, during Passover, they have been instructed, we have been instructed, to teach our children the history
That's right.
of the things that took place and how we've been brought out, you know, how the people were enslaved, how they got delivered, and yes.
Okay, God actually, in the first 5 books, even before that, he talks to them about instilling these values.
Right,
And
exactly.
prior to Passover. So from the beginning, you know, God instilled it in them. And you can see that in Cain and Abel and Seth, you know, all the way down.
Right.
Honoring God was instilled, you know, in them
Right.
from the beginning. Okay? But it's like your grandchildren.
Right.
When you said, do you know
Don't say that on.
if Jesus is coming, you know, and they said Jesus comes on Christmas, my birthday, and Easter. There's some disconnect there,
Right.
you know,
Right.
with what they should be knowing. And those are, you know, those are our kids. It's like, wait a minute now, you know?
Yeah.
So we all got that, where we need to take a responsibility in getting this across to other generations, or at least to the generation before us, okay? But it wasn't really done at Passover. It's just that that's part of the tradition, is that during that ceremony,
Right.
the question is asked, why are we doing this?
Right.
But the thing is, we're supposed to sit with our families, at least on the Sabbath, on the Sabbath, when the Sabbath happens. You know, there are certain things that you sit down with your children or your family members and you talk about and discuss, and that's how the kids would learn, even if they were like, you know, somewhere playing on the floor or whatever at the time. But that's the way the culture transfers to the culture, is through the children, and we have neglected to continue that. And like Sean was saying, hey, it's gotta happen. You know, it's going to happen.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody's saying the same thing.
Yeah, and I was
pra-
alluding to
Yeah.
that, but I was just,
Yeah, it
you know,
didn't
one
start
of
at
the things-
Passover, but it's something that's done because the practice since the beginning of time was to talk about it orally to your children.
Right.
Moses is just the first person to write it down.
Right.
There was
So,
a 400-year gap.
yeah. There was a 400-year gap where they're constantly talking to people, and no one was writing it down. But that's why they use it. God had been talking to Adam, right? And when he was walking in the cool of the day, they weren't just enjoying a breeze. He was teaching and instructing them, which is why you see certain things that they were doing, like making altars, and you're like, well, where did they get this idea? They already had the knowledge because they were walking with God, and those family members were teaching it to them. So, yeah, it'll all make sense at the end when Jesus comes. At the end, right? All of it. Okay. Huh? Buy you guys and live? Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't get the reference. All right, so now we're at the blessing part, right? Where were we at? They so Ephraim and Manasseh, they were blessed. He was saying Manasseh's going to be great, but Ephraim is going to do a little bit more. Still worthy in God's sight. So we're at I read that already. I'm down here at 20. Yeah, so chapter 48, verse 21, it says, and Israel said to Joseph, behold, I died, but God shall be with you and bring you again to the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to you one portion above your brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. Now, the most important thing kind of relates to what you're saying, Minister Dorothea. The Spirit. At the end of everything, right, when we go on to the other side, we have to transmit this spiritual significance of who God is to our children, because they're not going to know how to function in life when you're gone if you're not teaching them God's principles, not teaching them how to live life and kick them back at 18 and thinking that they're going to know how to function. You have to give them God. That's what this is all relating to. We have to give God to our children. All right, and the only way we do that is by talking to them and connecting to different things and making the Bible fun. And Jacob, so now I'm at chapter 49, so we're going to get into the specific blessings that we're going to see throughout time. Because this prophecy is important because it's a blessing that's going to teach them and instruct them and also testify to how they live. And if you go back in history and do a little research, you're going to see different things like royal families, even now, that live in Great Britain, have genealogy that comes out of Judah, whose blessing was what? The scepter shall not pass. Right. You're going to see people in tents. You're going to see people who are businessmen, merchants, different things. And you're like, well, how do these people, who are we, why do I gravitate to these types of things? It's because of your bloodline. One of the cool things I learned about the Jewish people is that because some of them were kept in one area, so they know where their bloodline starts and ends. Right. The rest of us don't have that. But one of the cool things you can tell what tribe they came through, if they know, is by their last name. So a Cohen, what do you think a Cohen would be?
A priest.
Out of the tribe of Levi. Or a Reubenite.
Yeah.
Or Reubenite. You know, the way their names, if they kept to their bloodline, like if they were able to, because we didn't have a choice. And I don't want to say like we're blameless. I'm just saying, you know, if we were pulled out or sold into slavery, trapped in, you know, camps and different things of that nature, we couldn't keep it all. But the people that could, they can draw their bloodline based on their name. That is really cool. Yeah. What's in the name, right?
Right. We went to a Cohen's wedding.
We did?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Y'all remember?
I do remember.
Oh.
I've only gone to 3 weddings in my life, I think. Yeah. So that was cool. I was thinking about that today. Now, I'm going to get into these prophecies. Chapter 49, it says, Jacob called to his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you crests. That's what I was thinking about. Crests.
Family crest.
Family crests.
Yeah, that's big in
100 years, not 100 years ago, not millions of years, long time ago, in a galaxy far away, they would create these crests.
Right.
And if you look at the crest, they had these people that were trained to make them.
Mhm.
It would document their entire lineage.
Right.
And so they have these in England
Yep.
with these crests that are authentic, documenting what tribe came from where. And all these different things are in our history, even in America's seal. They have a seal with 13 stars on it in the shape of a star, because there are people in America, everyone, that unless you're a Neanderthal, what was your troglodyte? Unless you're like got giant's blood in you, you hail from the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, anyway, back to it. I'm on track now. Okay. And Jacob called to his sons and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and hearken to Israel your father. I'm just going to fill in the gaps here. Jacob had the ability to prophesy to the future, not just to his children.
Right.
And he was going to tell them things that were going to be happening at the end of time.
Yeah.
But God told him not to. Why do you think he told him not to reveal everything? What does God care about? Heart. The heart of these people at the time. He's speaking, he's prophesying to the children. But because their heart wasn't right, they couldn't see the full thing of what God wanted to reveal. So that's why we have, John staring into the sky, telling us about all these different things from the Old Testament. All right, so now we're going to start with Reuben. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, then defiled you it. He went up to my couch. So we already know everyone's in the room. And he's just spilling all the beans, right?
Hey, he about to leave
It's
it.
kind of like, huh?
He about to go. He okay.
Well, right. That's the thing about family. We know everything.
Yeah.
No secrets here.
Right.
But, because one of the people I watched was talking about how he just kind of turned everyone as he was speaking to Reuben specifically. Then he was like, you remember what he did, right? So I thought that was really funny. So that followed him. So what do we look at this as the type of person? Because we're going to think about these traits, right?
Right.
And think about the type of tribe that Reuben is and why Moses had to go and reseal the blessing. So what do you guys see in it? We can make a little list here.
Disrespected.
I did a little extra study.
Yeah? Go on and talk to us while
I think he had every intention to have Reuben be his firstborn heir,
Yeah.
because of how he says the excellency of dignity and power.
Yeah, so Reuben was the firstborn, but because of his thought pattern, he was unstable.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So he couldn't take on the blessing, which is why Dad said, you won't excel. Means that he could go either way. Because what do we remember when he was selling, when they were deciding to get rid of Joseph, the brothers, right? He was like, should I go?
All
Should
in,
we?
and then he wasn't.
And then he wasn't. So he's unstable. So that's a trait. He has the potential, but he's unstable. And we'll just say potential because he turned out to be okay. Half of his tribe did, right?
Right.
That's why
The
the stable half did.
Right. Moses had to go in and they reinforced the blessing later on in Deuteronomy. But because he had to bless it because of their disobedience as time goes on, they lose a chunk of their seed. And so they're the tribe that dwindled. So Moses had to bless it, by God. They had to re-bless that so that they could continue to thrive.
It was that half tribe of Reuben was the one that stayed on the side?
It was Reuben, it was Gad, and it was the half tribe of Manasseh.
Oh.
Yeah, that's decided. And they just were like, we don't want to fight anymore. We feel like we got enough, which is fine. All right, and then it says, Simeon and Levi are brethren, instruments of cruelty in their habitations. O my soul, come not you into their secret, to their assembly. My honor, be not you united. Oh, is that united? Yeah.
Yes.
For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they dug down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So that was Simeon and Levi. So let's think about Simeon. Simeon's name, we got Reuben's name. Simeon's name means aggression, right? And this, we're not talking about the name that Leah and Rachel gave their children. We're talking about the traits from this prophecy. Like, what is it saying? It's saying he's aggressive, right?
Hot-headed.
Yeah, he's hot-headed. And he's violent, and his violence consumes all that's near, which is why he was able to get Levi to talk to him and help him kill all. Who did he kill, guys?
The Shechemites.
The Shechemites, yeah. He and his brother, because of what happened to Dinah, Dana, right? No, it's Dina. They killed all those people because of their anger, because of their aggression. So Levi's name is actually, he's someone that wants to serve, even though his blessing is kind of tied in Simeon's from their father. He wants to serve, which is why the tribe of Levi are dedicated to the temple service. Because they are dedicating themselves to a higher call. I'm going to move this. So we got Levi. My note says, they serve, and they serve with a higher purpose. I always thought people in clergy were somehow descendant. Because who just wakes up with this idea of, I want to bless the Lord, oh my soul, and lead others into it, right? I always thought that, and I wonder if it's because you may have somebody in your line. Because it's like, your prayers, your grandmother prayed for you. Yeah, to get saved, but to build a church? Did anyone ever have that thought about people in ministry, maybe Levitical?
Yeah.
Okay, serve with higher purpose.
Sometimes they're Reubens.
But sometimes they're Reuben. I didn't want to say with the right mind, but okay. Now, where are we? We're at verse 8, 49, chapter 8. The next son is Judah. I already hinted. Now, all of these tribes, you can find them. I didn't do the research because we can save that for next year. But you can find them all over the world in significant places. I'm being cryptic. But you can find them, and you can find their traces of these tribes all over the world. And if you look deeply at it, you can see the character of this blessing is being acted out in life today. Okay, so we have Judah. Comment?
Comment about Levi and Simeon, when he says, let not my soul enter their council, and let not my honor be united to their assembly. That was a prophetic statement, and he was talking about some of the actions that they would take when they were in Moses' presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For Levi?
Yes, Simeon and Levi.
Yeah, because they were, because he helped with the temple, right? Yeah, that's good. Good thought. All right, so remember we talked about Judah last week, right? And we said, what did we say about Judah, defining traits?
He's a leader.
He's a leader. Let's think about that. Judah, you are he whom your brethren shall praise. Your hand shall be in the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey. My son, you are gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him? The scepter. Where's the H in there? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and to him shall be the gathering of the people be. Now, we think about royalty, right? And when you look at these crests that I'm talking about, if you see a lion on there, those people come from the tribe of Judah. If you see who's got it? The Asher, somebody is a, Naphtali is a deer, right? We're going to get there. If you see a deer on these crests, not talking about the people that made their own crests and just like, I hail from this line. I'm talking about those ancient ones. If you see that, it's talking about these tribes. Okay. Now, binding his foal to the vine and his ass's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of grapes. Now, this is talking about Jesus. His eyes shall be red with wine and his teeth white with milk. Now, y'all remember in Revelations when they were describing Jesus and how he had woolly hair and teeth white. And anyway, that's what that's referencing. It's talking about until Jesus comes, those people that hail from this tribe are going to be people that are royalty and that they'll always be in positions of justice, right? Okay, so what did I put about Judah? He's a leader, he's king, and he's supposed to be selfless.
He's brave.
And I'm not talking about Judah, but Judah was selfless because he put himself down there for Benjamin. And Jesus put himself down for all of us, right? So he's supposed to be selfless, but all the people in royalty now may be a little self-involved. So anyway, so he's selfless, and then he's royal. Okay. Now, we're looking at Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for a haven of ships, and his border be unto Sidon. Now I have about, who was that? Zebulun. Zebulun is a merchant. Yeah. And I think about those fishers of men who were always out fishing and doing business and doing things like that. So Zebulun was a business, he had a business mind, and he complimented Issachar, his brother. So that's what Zebulun. So if you think about people that have a quality of being in business, you may come from the tribe of Zebulun. Am I spelling that right? Zebulun. Yeah, I am. So we're going to say he's a merchant. And you know, by the time Jesus came, they were so mixed up anyway, because Jesus kind of was in both. He was in Judah and Levi, because of his mom and his dad. Okay. Now, where are we at?
14.
Issachar? So now, chapter 49, verse 14, it says, Issachar is a strong ass, couching between two burdens, right? And he saw the rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant to tribute. Now this is talking about, who was that? Issachar? Issachar was, he's somebody that studies. and learns. He's a scholar. And he's dedicated to study. And that's what he is. That's what it's talking about. He's bending down, he's studying, he's learning. So I'm going to put him here. So I'm going to say those people that are like Nobel Prize winners, maybe they come from Issachar. Scholarly, and then they go together. Okay, now the next one is Dan. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that bites the horse heels, so that its rider shall fall backward. Now remember, when you think about the books of the Bible, the first 5 books of the Bible, anytime they will mention any type of character like a adder or a serpent or a bear, or in prophecy, they're talking about the children of Israel. And again, like I talked about a couple weeks ago, you can run reference because at the time, that's all you had was a story that they told you about your family line. So Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that bites the horse heels, so that its rider shall fall backward. I have waited for your salvation, O Lord. So Dan he's a law, he's order, and he's someone that gives justice. Even though Dan was acting up when Moses showed up. Y'all remember that? No? Oh, we'll get there. Okay, so Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Some people think that Gad is Native Americans because they dwelled in tents and they kept that way even years later. And then they're, what does it say? They will be overtaken, but they'll overcome at the last. And they got all this money over there with all these casinos and different things, but they give their children an inheritance to take care of themselves at a certain age, and they're able to, if they're living right, able to kind of take care of themselves. But it was gotten received from what happened to them when their families were killed during those times in history. Okay, so that is Gad, right? So talking about Gad is a troop. And my note says he's a warrior. They fight for what they believe in, and they believe in justice. Yeah, we're just going to say hold to beliefs. Okay, and then we got Asher. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Now, Asher is someone that is prosperous, and they have more than enough. And then you probably look at those celebrities, I would think, they may not be living right, but who am I to judge? But there are people that are wealthy, they have more than enough, they have enough to spare, and they just have more than what's necessary. So, if you're able to do that, call me, no?
Yeah, I know that's right.
They have more than enough.
That's awesome.
Okay. Now, I think we're almost done, right? Now we got Asher. Now we're at Naphtali. He's a hind let loose. He gives goodly words. So Naphtali is he's a free spirit, and he's independent, and his children are supposed to be healthy because just like we have good genes that we pass on, he was known for his good genes and his strength and his ability to be able to do, exercise and stuff.
Yeah.
Athletes?
Yeah, they were athletic, but they were free spirits. And his children were just like him. Free spirit. And okay. So then what else do we have? We have Joseph is a fruitful bough or bow. It looks like dough. So I'm going to say bow. Even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him. So we know this is talking about what Joseph went through. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. So this is talking about he became so powerful and he fed the nations. God gave him that strength. And he's the one that ends up saving us all. Because if it weren't for Joseph, we'd be dead. Because we would have died of hunger. With 7 years of bad famine and 7 years of really bad famine. So Joseph is someone that achieves greatness through challenge and maintains his spiritual integrity, because he was challenged all the while by that lady. Y'all know that lady.
Potiphar's
So
wife.
Potiphar's wife. So Joseph he's got, we're going to say, integrity. Yeah, I'm going to just say integrity. Elder, I can't number all the ways. Let me count the ways, how awesome he is, right? Okay. Now we're at 49 verse 25 of Genesis. Even by the God of your father, who shall help you, and by the Almighty, who shall bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies under, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. Okay. So then the next one is Benjamin shall raven as a wolf, and he's greedily devouring. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoils. All these are the tribes, the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is it that their father spoke to them and blessed them, everyone according to his blessing. He blessed them. Now, again, back to Benjamin, he consumes. He just consumes everything like a wolf. So we're just going to put Benjamin as a consume. Kind of like, what's the name? Simeon. But not so bad, but that's just his legacy. He consumes. Okay, and if you look for these shields that I'm telling you about, if you see a wolf, that's Benjamin. And then if you see him, just the different traits, that lets you know that, that's where they came from or expanded to. It's not their origin and it's not their final resting place. It's spread all over the world. The people, not like some germ. Okay, now, all these are the tribes of Israel, and this is it that their father spoke to them and blessed them, everyone according to his blessing. He blessed them. And he charged them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite. Because remember, Abraham did what?
Bought the cave from Heth.
Brought the cave from Heth. In the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought. See, there's the answer right there, with the field of Ephron the Hittite for a possession of a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah, his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah, his wife. And there I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and of the cave that is therein was from the children of Heth. And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet in the bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered to his people. Now, they didn't say he died, even though he's leaving his body. So that's what I was kind of referencing when we began the book. It's like Some people died, but he just breathed out. I thought that was cool. All right, the final chapter is talking about Joseph. Now, the thing about these people, even though we're looking at them from this perspective, God recognized how great and strong and mighty these sons were.
Mm-hmm.
And how they were warriors. I mean, they hailed from Abraham, who took down with 300 men nations. So they were strong. And so when they would wail or cry out, they would be heard. And it wasn't that they were causing a scene. It's just that their power was so great, they would attract people from all over the land or terrify them if they were doing like a war cry. So when we see this scene of Joseph mourning his father, it's not because he's making a scene like mourners do for some reason. He did it 7 days. He fulfilled that time. But while he was doing it, they were so loud in the anguish that they were feeling at that time that other nations from around heard them. Okay, now, Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. Now, I don't think Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is Israel. I don't think Abraham and Isaac were embalmed. So.
Well, they didn't mention.
Yeah, well, you got to think about Joseph grew up in the Egyptian culture.
Yeah.
So he took on that practice. And there's nothing wrong with it. I just wonder how the mummy feels in the tomb with the other bones, the other rotting corpses. Dorothea laughed. All right. So I was thinking about that. So he embalmed his father, and 40 days were fulfilled for him. For so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. And they're saying that's 70 days. But those were the Egyptians, so that was their culture to mourn. But ours is kind of like you gotta pick yourself up, wipe yourself off, and move on, right?
Right.
Okay. So so they were doing their 70 days, and when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spoke to the house of Pharaoh, saying, "If now I have found grace in your eyes, speak, I pray you, in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die in my grave, which I have dug for me in the land of Canaan. There shall you bury me. Now, therefore, let me go up, I pray you, and bury my father, and I will come again." And Pharaoh said, "Go up and bury your father according as he made you swear." And Joseph went up to bury his father, and he went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the house of Joseph and his brethren, and his father's house, only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. But I'm sure they had some people stay to take care of the children.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that. This would be a perfect time to go and attack Goshen when they're in mourning, right? It's a terrible time. Okay, and there, huh? Yeah.
I thought about it too, but
Yeah.
I just assumed they left guards.
Yeah, they probably did. And there went up with him.
Assuming the women could pick up a shield or a spear.
Right. Maybe the women are tough too. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company.
Yep.
So not only are they mourning, but they have all these people with them. So they're making a lot of noise. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond Jordan. And there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. And he made a mourning of his father 7 days. See, the Egyptians were a little longer, but he was specific to the 7 because he's with his people. So they were like, why are you acting out? And when you try to crawl into the coffin. Right? I'm just kidding, guys. That's not funny. And when the inhabitants of the land of the Canaanites saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, "This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians." Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan. And his sons did to him according as he commanded them. Now for his sons carried him into the land of Canaan, and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham bought with the field for possession of a burying place of Ephron the Hittite before Mamre. And Joseph returned into Egypt, he and his brethren, all that went up with him to bury his father. After that, he had buried his father. And then his brothers get this idea that he might still be mad at us now that Dad and Mom are gone to protect us from his wrath. Let's create this story. So they returned to Egypt, and Joseph's brethren saw that the dad was dead. They said, Joseph will hate us. But Joseph, I think, was walking in a state of forgiveness. He was just so happy to be back with his family, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, they said what I said, which is, wait, let's tell them Dad didn't want us to be mad, which you should teach your children. Get along.
Right.
No fighting. Okay. So, because you're all you have at the end of things. God is the one that never leaves you, but when everyone else does, you have a family. Family's important.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and his brethren also went and fell down before his face, and they said, Behold, we be your servants. And this is fulfilling that prophecy still, even where they were bowing down, even after death. And Joseph said to them, Fear not, for I am in the place of God. Oh, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil, but it was all meant for us to be able to be saved. So now, therefore, fear you not. I will nourish you and your little ones, and he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house. And Joseph lived 110 years. Now, time is getting cut short as far as the livelihood of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. So he lived a long time. And he also saw the children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were brought up upon Joseph's knees. Now, this is different than the way, because they said, brought up upon the knees. But the other people were brought between the knees. So that's the distinction. Even though they were his children, he didn't take them on as his, which is not a bad thing. There's a distinction there. Okay, and Joseph said to his brethren, I died, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of Egypt, which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Guys, we got 2 verses left. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
We did it.
Amen.
We finished it. So, but
Great.
we're about to go into a little situation here. Because we finished Genesis. We have to get into Shemot, which is Exodus. Right? After you finish your book, right? Your Bible book. Not the entire Bible, but every time you finish a book of the Bible.
Right.
You have to say, be strong.
Be strong.
Be strong.
Strong.
And let us be strengthened.
And let us be strengthened.
Because
Because
we have to go deeper into our history.
Yeah.
And we have to go, that's the rest of the blessing, Bishop. Be strong, and be strengthened, is it?
Oh, okay.
But we got to go into the rest of the book. And these people, we are about to be enslaved. We have not been rehearsing our God. We have not known the spiritual side of things. After Joseph left, we have to encourage ourselves in the Lord. So at the end of when you finish your Bible, you say those words to bless what you have done and where you're going. To remember, there's hope in God, right?
That's
So,
helpful because I stopped at after finishing 1 Kings this week. I just was like, I can't take anymore. But now I've got to return.
right, be
And
strengthened.
be strong and be strengthened.
Right, because we have to rehearse it so we can know. And it's like we're learning so much. We're remembering too, which is really the most important thing, right? It says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, right? Shema, listen here. Observe to do all these things. Talk about it in the morning. Talk about it in the night. Put it before your eyes. Put it in the front of your arms, your eyes, whatever. But you do that. Mm-hmm.
I just want to say about the way we track and the way that we're going through. It gives you an opportunity to cover the books, and you're literally going verse by verse, so you can see how we progressed, how we got into situations, how we got out of situations, and how God was with us throughout all of these steps.
Mhm.
And one thing about with Christians is that they just pick a scripture, but they have no understanding of the dynamics of what that whole thing means. And so
Right.
this is very important that we step by step, go through and not look at it, well, the Jewish people do it, so forget it. No, it is us, because we have accepted this culture, we have accepted Christ. So we should learn about who Christ is, who God is. This is God's story,
Right.
and we need to know God's story.
Amen. We do. That's the perfect way to end it. Let's know God's story. All right, guys. We have fun. Thanks for watching.
Amen.
Hey, we're going to say our prayer. Turn the video off.
Okay.
Is your archive in the beginning of Genesis? You have all of those in your archive?
You talking about the videos?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, we do, Mr.
They're just
Mayor.
not uploaded. I am. Oh, let me.